Good afternoon, you guys. Today I wanted to make a video on anxiety and its counterpart, depression. So there's lots of different reasons why people get anxious, why they get depressed. So to go through and make a video on why we get depressed, I think is sort of irrelevant because it varies from person to person. Sure, there are some common threads, but collectively, when anxiety hits, most of us want some tools and some basic understanding on what's happening for one and why it's happening, and then how do we address it? How do we pull ourselves out of that state? Because what this really comes down to is course correction. When we feel anxiety and we get into these spaces of feeling really anxious and just really bottled up in our lives and we can't get out of our head, it doesn't mean that you're bad. It doesn't mean that you've made a mistake or that you're, something is wrong in your life or that you've been a bad person. Sure, maybe if you've done something really horrible, you might have a conscience and it might be chewing away at you for sure. But oftentimes what we're looking at is people just don't know how to shift gears. They don't know how to change states. They don't have the tools, or they've never learned how to downregulate or upregulate their emotions. There's an idea in Chinese medicine called the three dantian theory. So these three primary centers in the body are important to consider when we look at staying healthy in both mind and body. The first idea is this, the three dantians. The first one is 3 finger widths below the belly button, directly in the lower abdomen, tap dead center, front to back, left to right, in the center of the body, in the center of the gut. Now this area in Japanese was called the hara. Martial arts traditions talk about this. Most good martial arts systems will discuss this area, breathing into this area, cultivating this area, getting the musculature very strong down here. So this lower dantian is really important in terms of cultivation. And when we look at these three layers, it's pyramidal, like this. So the bottom tier, the bottom tier of that pyramid is this lower dantian, the one below the belly button. This regulates our sexual activity. This regulates our feelings of feeling safe, secure, and vital in life. It also regulates our gravitational center, which means how we move. So our relationship to movement is regulated by this lower center. It's a really important one, but the vast majority of our life force needs to be down there if we want a life of longevity. The second tier is the heart center, located in the center of the chest. This is the emotional intelligence center. This is how we communicate with people. This is how we relate to our friends, to our family, to our lovers, how we relate and communicate, and can we do it in a way that is not antagonistic. People that don't communicate well, that always have to be right, or people that are excessively aggressive or territorial typically are imbalanced in this area. But we need some energy here as well. And then lastly, the top of the pyramid, that upper portion, is the thinking mind. And this is the one we want the least amount of energy up there. Now, unfortunately, in the West, this pyramid is typically upside down. We are all mental activity. We have 50 hamsters in the brain running at once in different directions, exhausting themselves. Our emotional intelligence is often so-so. We aren't able to get out of our emotional states, or we're so in our head that we don't have a lot of heart in our dealings. And then at the very bottom of the pyramid, for most Americans, is the gravitational center, where people are lucky if they get outside and take a walk during their very busy workday. So the first things first, the idea that we want to get is we've got to get this pyramid back to the way it's supposed to be, which is like this. Tons of energy down below, a little bit in the middle up in the heart, and then very little up in the brain. So how do we do this? What this means first and foremost in terms of lifestyle is that you've got to move your body. First and foremost, you've got to move your gravitational center. Given that you don't have any physical deformity, from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet, tap dead center is 3 finger widths below your belly button. That's gravitational center, which means if you want to have a healthy mind and you want to have a healthy body, obviously you're going to have to move it. So the Chinese have this basic statement, life is movement. And the antithesis to that is that being static, stationary, sedentary is aligned with death. That's what corpses do in coffins. It's a permanent lay down. There's no getting up. So we have to move our bodies. The other thing we have to look at is our relationship to sexuality. Now, this doesn't mean orientation. If we are, heterosexual or homosexual, it doesn't really matter, not in that sense. What it means is our relationship to ejaculation and orgasm. That's a big one. So one of the ways that this lower center gets depleted is if we are constantly and excessively depleting our reserves. So for men, this is especially true. If men are stuck in the masturbation culture that America sort of promotes, there's a lot of pornography, there's a lot of sexuality at our fingertips, but a lot of it is taboo at the same time. We can watch on TV or on YouTube people being shot and killed, but sexual activity is not able to be viewed. So it's a weird thing, that relationship we have with sex, but we have to look at this. If we are essentially over-sexualizing the lower center, our propensity to get anxious and upset and depressed is considerably higher. So for men, in particular, we have to regulate our sexual activity some. If we are prone to anxiety, we need to usually cut down how often we are ejaculating within a given week. Now for women, that's not usually the case. Women lose their essence usually through their monthly cycle, and then a ton of it they lose in childbirth. Men, we lose a pretty decent amount every time we ejaculate. So these are just ideas in terms of understanding that our sexual dialogue is going to play a role in our anxiety. Now the next one is this heart center. All right, so what this means is, how do we nourish this heart center and keep some energy in here, but not too much? We can't just be all feeling in life. We can't all just, if we feel everything and only operate from the emotional center, these are the people that are highly sensitive. They're very easily destabilized. And that's not what you want. You want to have a strong physical root down below so that the emotions up here don't destabilize the foundation. But part of how we nourish this upper center, part of how we help reduce our anxiety, one of the best ways is through quality friendships. So, hanging out with people that you genuinely love and that you genuinely appreciate you, that genuinely stoke your fire. People that are optimistic, people that are supportive and loving, and moreover, people that are willing, friends. One of the key threads that's discussed in the emotional intelligence spheres of Chinese medicine is that we have to have the capacity to go deep and shallow with friends. So if we are involved in social circles, or you're involved with a friend who always has the sarcasm meter ratcheted up the entire time, where it's a constant game of who's got the best sarcasm back and forth, that is one of the most exhausting and debilitating energies for the heart. The heart is fire, and humor is fire, but too much fire, things burn out. They burn out very quickly, and then people are exhausted, right? The coals are just burning. There's no more flame. So when we look at friendship, we can't just be always in a state of laughter either. We need a very real balance of laughter and tears. And that doesn't mean we have to get with our friends and cry. But what that means is we have to be willing and able, with quality friendships, to have deep conversations about life, what we want to do, things we think about, things we're struggling with, and fully going superficial and laughing at when one of your friends falls, and you laugh and maybe throw a can of beer at them. At least that's what I would do for my good friends. But that's the idea. You want to be able to go deep and shallow. You want those kinds of things happening in quality friendships. Part of how we nourish the heart. The other one is observing our thoughts. So if we observe our thoughts sort of like a projection screen, we watch our thoughts on a movie screen, that's one of the ways that we can help stabilize but also process our emotional spectrum. One of the ways that we keep our anxiety down. And the last thing is not spending too much mind energy, not spinning the wheel up here, not spending that mental currency all the time, because that's what most of us do. And if we spend all the time here thinking about what could be, what was, it's exhausting and our anxiety goes up. So the basic idea is the more activity we have here, the more apt we are to experience anxiety. And so how we flip those tables is rooting down into the gravitational center, which means you've got to get out and move. For me personally, I've found over the years, there are phases when I need to go on very long bike rides just to move my body and just to burn off that excess. I need to make myself tired, essentially. Other times, I need to stand, a standing meditation, or maybe an hour of Qigong or of Tai Chi. But in the end, we have to move it. If we are not moving our bodies, if we are sitting at a job all day, going home and watching television, and then wondering why we're anxious with the onslaught of stressors that we have in our life, we're not being proactive in our dialogue with our health, and we're not being proactive in taking steps to remedy our anxiety. So to remedy anxiety, we have to shift gears. You have to engage the clutch. You've got to pull and change the gearbox. You've got to move it. There's no other way. So if we just sit there and expect for things to change, then we get into a cycle of just, wanting an easy way out. And then that's where substances come in. Sometimes drugs, alcohol, people can just start going to things. But if they're not actively trying anything, you're sort of keeping yourself in a mode of victimization. You're just being a victim, essentially. Now, that's to say, if you have anxiety, it doesn't mean you're inherently, okay? I'm not just saying it's a knee-jerk response that you are a victim. But if we're not proactive, we can also get very stuck into a cycle that's not good. So, the thing to remember, if the mind is winning, turn the pyramid upside down. Spend a lot of time in your body. Go move it. Feel safe and secure in your environments. Hang out, okay, as we get to this second level. Hang out with people who can nourish you on the superficial, on that shallow level, and also on the deep level. If you cannot get both, you're not going to feel that satiation or that rest that we need, because that's really what we need for quality friendships. We need laughter, for sure, and the ability to cry if need be. And if those things are not met, it's not a good thing. And if you can only get to those places through alcohol or inebriation with your friends, that's not a good thing either. If you have to get tanked with your friends to have a deep conversation about something in your life, it's not to say that you can't hang out with this person, but it's also not going to be a sustainable, long-lasting friendship that's going to nourish you in the long run. So we've got to keep these things in mind. The last piece in regulating our anxiety, okay, outside of this pyramid idea, is that we want so completely to slow down our breathing. Now, what this means is that we have deep, slow, relaxed abdominal breathing where we don't focus on moving the chest. So as a basic rule of thumb, if we inhale and we lift the shoulders and shorten the neck, you can see it physically, but collectively the energy in the body rises up towards the head. That's not what you want. What we want to keep the chest relaxed, the shoulders loose, sunken, and heavy. And then breathe the way a baby does, which is as we take a breath, we relax the chest. We don't puff it up. We don't push any energy up into the upper area, and we allow the belly to swell. So as we inhale, the abdomen swells like a balloon, front to back and side to side. So the sides of your waist, the front of your belly, and your low back should all expand when you breathe. And if you don't feel movement, front, back, left, and right, you're going to want to put your attention and relax your body and start putting your mind in those areas until you feel movement. And this is one of the ways that we start to fill the energy into that lower dantian, how we put those energetic reserves into that lower tier of the pyramid. So slow, deep, full, relaxed abdominal breathing. The other way you can do this is that make sure your exhales are longer than your inhales. This is one of the ways we down-regulate the central nervous system. Now, if you switch that and you take longer inhales and shorter exhales, that's where we get that ratcheting energy up. That's where the energy comes up for, say, combat or for high activity, where we're pumping the body up. Not usually the best for anxiety. Anxiety is usually a condition of excess. There's too much energy that we've got to redistribute down back into our root, back into the lower centers of the body. Now, the last idea I want to leave you with is that people hear these kinds of dialogues, and especially if they've come from a more mainstream background, they're going to hear this and say, yeah, right, Gray, like what is all this talk about energy moving through the body and whatnot? The thing you have to remember is this. The body is a bioelectric conductor. 70 to 80% of our body is water, and our central nervous system is electrical signals. The heart gives off an electromagnetic field, which has been verified by Western science through the HeartMath Institute, which is out of Boulder Creek, California. It's measurable outside the body. We have an energetic field. And we have to understand that the lower abdomen, okay, the intestines, the small intestines, which is sort of the storehouse for the lower dantian, this lower tier. Did you know that 95% of our serotonin, the feel-good hormone, is produced in the gut? 95%. That's not a little, that's a lot, that's most of it. 80% of our immune response is in the small intestine. So when we say breathe and move from this lower center and to get blood and oxygen circulating into the lower abdomen, it's another way of saying fuel that area so that you have the capacity to feel good, so that your body can produce the serotonin to feel good, and so that your body has a natural immune response. Because immune response in Chinese medicine isn't just about the pathogens that we can get, the flu strains or the bugs that we can get and make us sick. It's also about us having immunity to the bullshit at an emotional level from people too. The immune response is not just about bugs. It's also about foreign emotional patterns that are going to come in and not be so great for us that we have to push out. So part of how we cultivate the immune response is, again, is just breathing down below. So keep these ideas in mind if you have anxiety. And if this is just a starting point for you, reach out to me. I'm always available for consultation. I walk people through meditation, structured eating, rituals in the morning. There's lots of different things that you can do to get your body on point so that you feel safe, secure, and sound, and so that anxiety does not run your life. So, hope this finds you guys well. Thanks for your time. Take care.